Emerson's Center for Spiritual Life partnership with St.Francis House is really a part of the mindfulness equity movement, and by that I mean trying to reduce obstacles to accessing mindfulness meditation instruction that can be based on race or socioeconomic status. So since the summer of 2017, I've been going in once a week to teach 30-minute meditation sessions to the residents of St. Francis House. All of them are formerly homeless themselves and current tenants of St. Francis House. And over the months, it's really become a regular and safe space to drop in, to check in about how we're doing, and to have a container of shared silent practice where we can show up just as best as we each can and try to basically to love and allow ourselves together.
So where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Malden, Massachusetts.
I'm from kind of only 10 miles south of here. Grew up in Quincy.
Framingham, Massachusetts.
Describe yourself using 3 words.
Energetic, determined, and peaceful.
Handsome. Funny. And awesome.
Reflective, cerebral, humorous.
What way has the meditation affected you and your personality traits?
Meditation actually has affected me in a way, in a positive way, because it's brought me around to be aware of different things that had happened to me in the past. I'm not so much worried about it now. I sort of let things go.
It hasn't affected me at all. Every time I go someplace and to some alcohol treatment programs such as Tewksbury, Cat Transitions, they offered meditation to everybody, and I was one of those individuals that took part in it. It always helped me relax during a stressful day.
If I choose to do it a little more disciplined, to carve out a kind of a part of a day a notch where I can do some regular meditation, maybe get that type of music, like a CD to put on in the background or something like that. Because, and maybe it wouldn't even be, to be honest, at this location in your home and surroundings, it doesn't lead quite often to privacy and feeling comfortable to just sit and be and be quiet. It's sometimes I find it in unusual places, out in the public garden or the commons, something like that, where I'll just sit and find a private spot. So in that way, I guess I've taken from this that I can do this anywhere.
What does the word privilege mean to you?
Privilege? I guess it means that, in a broad sense, that I might be more, looking at myself being white, I might be more privileged, or maybe I was privileged than other people who were of different color or different races. But I never, growing up, because I grew up in a very middle class family, I never felt that I was privileged of any sort of, at all, because I worked very hard for what I got. My father never paid a penny for my college. I did it all on my own through grants, scholarships, and I'm a lifetime learner, so I know where the money's at, and grants. Still going to school.
Since I got sober, I've been trying to get in touch with my family ever since I got here. Back in July of 2010, I went to the computer room and started looking, and I'm in touch with them today. I have 3 siblings out there, and one's in San Francisco, California. Married to my brother-in-law, David, and I've been trying to get in touch with him since Thursday, November 16th, and he called me up on Thanksgiving Day, and he asked me what I was doing. I said, I just woke up. I said, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, don't worry about it, Mike, you know. I was getting up anyway. I mean, I have a 4-day holiday weekend, you know. I don't have to do any volunteer work until Monday, so.
Well, to me, I guess it's something positive, kind of bestowed upon you through no inherent work of your own. Sometimes it's a reward, something positive in return for something good or positive you did for someone else. You have kind of gained or been awarded a privilege. So it's something positive. I always see it as something positive.
Okay, so I'm going to read you the actual definition
All right.
of privilege, and then afterwards you're going to try to see where that can fit into your life, whether you have privilege, whether you don't. So the definition of privilege is a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group of people. So using that definition, do you think that you fit into that? Is there anywhere in your life that you feel like you may have some sort of privilege or that you don't have any privilege in?
Well, I don't really know. Based on that definition, that's kind of narrow, but based on that, I don't believe I'm in a special group of people that has privilege. I, for the most part, also kind of in my life have been mostly kind of negative, fed into negativity, and not always been any kind of an optimist. And I've had trials and tribulations, and I know, based on all of this and through my life, I am apparently a lot stronger than I ever gave myself credit for being. But I don't see that as certainly as privilege, because that's just kind of I don't know. Maybe it was bestowed upon me. Maybe that strength, inner strength, is some sort of privilege bestowed upon me. I don't know.
What brings you here to St. Francis?
What brings me here to St. Francis? Well, when I made a visit back to Boston this past May, I just couldn't believe the cost of living had just gone up astronomically. And I said to myself, I don't know how I'm going to make it on the pension that I'm going to be getting to get something that is affordable. So when I came up in May, I was staying at Pine Street, and then when I found out about St. Francis House, I took a visit over here, and I had asked if they had housing here, and they said, yes, we have permanent housing. I said, well, how does one go about getting in here? They said, well, there's a waiting list, and you can apply, but don't hold your breath in getting anything. So I did. I went up and I spoke to Clyde, and he said I was 142 on the list in May. So then I told him, I said, well, I'm going back to Brownsville, Texas for the summer because I wanted to finish an associate degree in social work so I could get an associate license here in social work. So I did that. And when I came back in August, I had called him ahead of time and said, well, is there any openings? And he said, no, you're still on the waiting list. So I stayed at Pine Street until October. He called me September 26th it was, and he said, no, October 26th, he says, are you ready to move in on November 1st? I said, I'm ready to move in on October 29th because I had things in storage here and it was going to cost me. When I was at Pine Street, I refused to stay upstairs because there were bed bugs, and I actually proved it by pulling out a magnifying glass and showing it to him. So I just stayed in the lobby every night. But when they found out that I was eligible to move here, I made the move at the right time because now the weather has gotten colder, there's more people there, and I'm getting ready to leave town to visit my father and some friends down in Texas. And I said to him, I was thinking about that, I said, this came at the right time because if I didn't have a place, I don't know whether I would have gone up because I would be worried about my things. As such, I'd have to put everything in storage, and so now I know I don't have to do that. So
got sick and tired of living the way I was, constantly being homeless, living on the streets of Attleboro. I got sick of getting picked up by the police for stupid shit. Stupid.
It's fine.
And every time I did something wrong, there was always alcohol was involved. So I told him in the past that I do volunteer work, and I usually go to bed early and I get up early in the morning. So don't worry about it. And I also have contact with my sister Terry in Manchester, New Hampshire. He's also a recovering alcoholic. And she's got a beautiful daughter, Megan, and I have two great nieces. And my younger brother, who I first got in touch with, I still have yet to reach out to him. He's going through some financial problems right now. He lives in Epping, New Hampshire. So I'm the oldest out of four. Helped him, raised in Framingham for 17 years till my dad died. He died 2 days after my 17th birthday, 1977. And my mom moved me, my two other brothers, my sister to Malden, where she was born and raised. And I finished out my last 3 years at Malden High School. Graduated in 79. Went to work at IHOP in Saugus, and that didn't last long. And eventually I ended up homeless. Spent about 2 years at Pine Street back in the early 80s. In and out of detoxes, halfway houses, jails, court. And every time I got sentenced to jail time, I always did county time, like maybe 30, 60, maybe 90 days. And my drinking took me everywhere. Eventually back to Lynn, to Salem, to Brockton.
So of course our main mission at the Emerson Center for Spiritual Life is to serve students and also faculty and staff. And yet we have a wider lens as well. St. Francis House being just 1 block away, it's a great opportunity for us to live into action Emerson's value of civic engagement, of having positive relationships across our community, not just limited to the campus. So by way of extension, the residents of St. Francis House are a part of our Boston Common neighborhood community, and it's really been a blessing that's been mutual, going in to guide meditations once a week and also to create connections, to learn about the many people who do share a common home of living or working around the Boston Commons together.
How do you see the shelter working on a daily basis? Like, what usually goes on here?
It's a place where people can get their basic needs met, such as breakfast and lunch, get some clothes. There's a healthcare for the homeless clinic here, so they can get their medical needs taken care of. But it's also a place where I think they come and they can get the respect that they deserve. I think the staff here are very diverse and we all have different roles, but one thing that we all have in common is that we want to be a welcoming space, and we want to offer a place where they can find what they need. And for some people it's just refuge. For some people it's help finding a place to live. For some people it's psychological, mental health issues. And we also want to provide a place where they can make their own decisions, that it's a safe environment where they can figure out what their recovery means to them, what they need in their life, how they need to keep themselves safe, what steps they need to take.
Have you seen any changes in these residents since they first came here up to now by coming through the meditation program?
I think it has given them a chance just to rest their minds. I was thinking of that today, how everyone in the room had so much kind of going on. And for a lot of the residents, coping skills are really tough. So things that might not seem like a big deal to us are huge to them because they spent most of their lives on survival mode. So now it's like, oh, how do I handle a bill? How do I handle a letter from my brother? How do I handle an interaction with my next door neighbor? So it's a lot of thinking and a lot of energy. So to have a place where they can just kind of turn their minds off and they get that permission, I think is huge.
How do you see privilege operating here, like in the permanent residence area, and the way they, move around, the way they live their lives?
Privilege is something that people sort of take for granted if they have it. I think if you don't have it, you know you don't have it. I've noticed that the men of color here are much more used to not expecting the outcome to be positive. And I find sometimes some of the white men who live here get very angry if they feel like they've done the right thing and the doors are still shut. And this has just kind of come to light recently. And I think it's because even though they probably grew up in really hard situations and it was not easy and they had a lot of trauma in their lives, they were also in a world that said, you're privileged. Even if you don't even have benefits to it, you have the right to the American dream. Or I think the other people that live here and the one woman who lives here kind of understood that that dream wasn't really always for them. They didn't have a lot of role models that achieved it. Doors were shut sometimes very directly and other times very subtly. I think with the whole homeless issue and the whole overdose issue, that's everything's so connected. I think that it's just interesting. Privilege even plays a role there because it's other people deciding how to deal with this. It's other people from the outside saying, this is the way to go. We're the symptom, like the homelessness population and the drug overdoses and the addictions and all of that. And really, it's at the beginning. It's education. It's where people are, probably way too much, but if people were being shot the way they get shot in Dorchester and Roxbury, in Weston or Newton, you'd have the National Guard in there. It just wouldn't be acceptable. But somehow it's acceptable. And that, even if you didn't participate in that, but you grew up in that, that's going to really change how you see the world. And I think that's also privilege. Like, how can you live in the same country and have such a different experience 5 miles away from someone else your age in school? If you take 2 10th graders, how can those experiences be so radically different if you live in Brookline or you live in Dorchester? So I think that's definitely the issue of privilege. There's a lot to it.